Okay, so I have an absolutely wild story for you today. It comes straight from this famous Korean radio show, The Cultural Show. And let me tell you, you are going to want to buckle up for this one. It is a masterclass in secondhand embarrassment. So, how in the world could one little kid's innocent comment completely derail a public bus ride and turn it into total chaos? I know, it sounds impossible. But oh my gosh, you are about to see how a tiny misunderstanding can snowball into something, well, something you just have to hear to believe. All right, let's get into it. Our story kicks off with a dangerous misunderstanding. And at the center of it all are our two main players. First, we have an aunt. Picture someone who is kind of shy, really does not like being the center of attention. And then we have her niece, Minahi, who is, let's just say, the exact opposite. Super outspoken.
Okay, so little Minhee has this thing. Ever since she could talk, she became obsessed with her aunt's belly. In her kid brain, the logic was simple. Her aunt had a bit of a tummy, and so, obviously, there must be a baby in there. It became her favorite question to ask all the time.
And right here, this is the simple mistake that's about to light the fuse on this whole situation. On one hand, you've got Minhee's view. A big belly equals a baby. Simple. On the other hand, you have reality, which is just, it's just a belly. And this little gap between what she thinks and what is real, it's about to cause an absolute catastrophe. So let's talk about the bus ride from hell. This is the fateful day Minhee decides to share her big news with the world. Picture this. The aunt and Minhee squeeze onto a bus. And it's not just any bus. It's packed. Like standing room only. Everyone's crammed in there. It's the absolute perfect setting for something incredibly embarrassing to happen. And then it begins. Little Minhee, with absolutely zero prompting, turns to some random guy who's sitting down and just announces it, loudly, for the entire bus to hear. She points at her aunt and tells him, "Mister, my mommy has a baby in her belly." You could hear a pin drop. And this is where the domino effect kicks in. The poor man, he gets all flustered and immediately jumps up to offer his seat. Now the aunt is mortified. She's trying to say, no, it's fine, but it's way too late. Everyone on the bus is staring at her now. She's totally trapped. She has no choice but to sit down, and just like that, against her will, she becomes the pregnant woman. So she's sitting there just wishing the floor would swallow her whole. And of course, a sweet old lady sitting next to her decides to be friendly. She leans over and asks, "Oh, how far along are you? 7, maybe 8 months? Just trying to make conversation." The aunt is about to try and explain. She's probably fumbling for words. But before she can get a single sound out, Minhee puffs up her chest and proudly announces, 10 months. Yep, you heard that right. 10 months. You can just imagine the gasps that went through the bus. People are probably thinking, 10 months? Is that even possible? Okay, so this is the moment where things go from just horribly embarrassing to physically catastrophic. Our poor aunt, who again hates attention, is now the star of this bus-wide drama. And all that stress, all those eyes on her, it triggers her irritable bowel syndrome. And not in a small way. I mean, try to imagine this. To everyone else on the bus, she just looks like a pregnant woman who's maybe not feeling well. She's pale, she's sweating, but inside she is having an all-out war with her own body. She's just thinking, I have to hold it in, over and over again. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. The bus lurches to a stop, and she's thrown forward a bit, and the whole bus erupts. People start screaming at the driver, "Hey, be careful, there's a 10-month pregnant woman on board." So the driver, who's now totally panicked, stops the bus, comes back to her seat, and offers to drive her directly to the hospital. The kindness of strangers has officially become her own personal hell. All right, the final showdown. She is at her breaking point. Holding it in is just not an option anymore. So in this weak, desperate voice, she just begs the driver, "Please, just let me off, right here." And the second the doors open, she grabs Minnie and makes a frantic escape. Her one and only destination at this point is a bathroom. Any bathroom. She spots a little mart up ahead and makes a beeline for it. Relief is so close she can almost taste it. But, of course, there's one final helpful person standing in her way.
A mart employee sees her, looking pale and sweaty, and asks if she's all right. And then, Minhee. Oh, Minhee. For one last, final, epic, story-ending time, she points and says, "My mommy has a baby in her belly."
And that is it.
That is the last straw. The employee, thinking they're a hero in the middle of a medical emergency, whips out their phone and starts dialing 119, which is like Korea's 911. Our aunt's brain, body, and soul just cannot take one more second of this. So as the employee is on the phone trying to physically stop her from going to the bathroom, she just snaps. The truth comes exploding out of her. She just screams, "No, it's poop. There's no baby."
And she's not done. She looks this poor, stunned employee in the eye and shouts, "This is fat and poop. Don't try to stop me." And with that, she finally breaks free, runs into the bathroom, and the nightmare is finally over. So, what exactly is the recipe for a public catastrophe of this magnitude? Well, it's pretty simple, really. You start with one very curious child with a big imagination. Then you add one very crowded public space. Mix in a bunch of overly helpful strangers who mean well. And for the final touch, top it all off with an extremely uncooperative colon. And voila. And that's the story. Isn't it just the perfect example of how good intentions and a little social pressure can create an absolute personal nightmare? It really makes you think, doesn't it? How a tiny, innocent little assumption can just spiral completely out of control. So that leaves me wondering, what's the worst misunderstanding you've ever been a part of? We've all got one, right? Probably not as bad as this one, hopefully. Anyway, thanks so much for listening to this crazy story.